Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of my podcast. I've been toying around with recording a podcast for some time now and decided to finally go for it. So, my name is Jamie Marshall. I am the owner and artist behind Beautiful Mess Yarn Works, where I have an Etsy shop at this point with hand-dyed yarns, some project bags and things like that. Most of my business up until this point has been wholesale, working with Jimmy Bean's Wool and some local yarn shops in my area. So just to introduce myself though, I am a wife. I'm a mother of two. I have a son who is 5 and a daughter who is 3.5. So I'm really busy. So on top of all of my fiber hobbies, I'm running a household as well. So this is my creative space. You can see some of my hand-dyed yarns and just some little treasures and things that are special to me. So the name of the podcast is I'll Knit If I Want to. And I came up with that because I knit on my lunch break at work. And people were like, "What are you doing?" And my response was always, "It's my lunch break and I'll knit if I want to." So the goal is to have this podcast consistently run around 30 minutes, thinking that's a typical time for a lunch break. So if you wanted to join the fiber conversation during your lunch break, this would be the perfect opportunity to do so. We'll have a few regular segments. I'd like to do the podcast bi-weekly. So the first one is going to be on my needles. If you follow me on Instagram at Beautiful Mess Yarn Works, you will recognize this next project because it has been a labor of love, and it has taken probably, I think I'm up to about 2 months. At this point, with having the littles, I don't get to do a lot of knitting during the day, on the weekends. I have a full-time job. So kids go to bed, mom starts to knit. So here is my Boxy sweater, which is also my Rhinebeck sweater. I'll be going to Rhinebeck for the first time this year. I have convinced my husband to accompany me on a weekend away by compromising, saying that we will do 1 day wool, 1 day breweries. So this is my Boxy sweater, and I have knit both panels. I have done the neckband. I have done the 3 needle bind off for the shoulder and also seamed up the side. So this is a behemoth at this point. I'm trying to get close so you can see the colors. This Hedgehog Fibres colorway is amazing. It's a tonal gray with, you can see there are specks of almost like a rust color, some bright blue, like a peacock blue almost, some purple, and then also some black in there. So this is the back. There's the front. And I am currently working on one of the sleeves. So I did not have circular needles small enough, the cord small enough to work the sleeve in that fashion. So I am using DPN. So I believe I have, this has to go to about 6 inches. So I have about 4 inches left on this sleeve, and then I will pick up and knit for this sleeve. And then my least favorite part of knitting, finishing, weaving in ends. So, but that is my Boxy sweater. I'm actually very pleased with that. It's my first large garment. Yeah, the pattern is by Joji, and I'm not going to lie, halfway through I was kicking myself for not picking the worsted version, because I would have been done in probably half the time. But if you haven't knit one of these, it's fun. It is miles and miles of stockinette, and I just keep thinking it'll all be worth it when someone says they like my sweater, and I can reply with, I made it. So that is my Boxy sweater. I have this much left for one sleeve, and another cake remaining about this size for the other. Look at that color. That might be my favorite Hedgehog colorway. So that is the first thing on my needles. Second, we have, and this is in my Mrs. Brown's bags, sock bag. And you've probably seen this on my Instagram as well if you follow me there. 9-inch circular needle socks. And this is in my colorway, Skating Party. I don't know, these neon colors just remind me of 2nd and 3rd grade skating party, couple skate. So here is what I have. This is actually my second, and you can see this colorway is somewhat self-striping. There's a little bit of overlap, like there's 2 rows of the neon there, but you get a row of neon, a row of white with speckles. So that's the second sock. So this is kind of a half-finished object. Here is the first, and these will be for my husband, who every other week has to dress up for work and insists on wearing funky socks with his shirt and tie. So there is the first one, and this is the Fish Lips Kiss Heel, which is my favorite. And this colorway is actually really interesting. There was another Instagram user who knit a shawl with this colorway, and when it's knit into something larger, it almost had like zebra stripes. It looked really cool. So depending on what you knit, so if you're going to use this Skating Party colorway for socks, you get this pretty cool self-striping pattern. So there's one that's done, and the other one is still in the works. And I don't know why, but I definitely jumped on the 9-inch circular bandwagon. But I don't know that I enjoy it as much as using DPNs. At first I was like, this is faster, this is way better, I'm going to use this for all of my socks. But now, not so sure. I have this terrible second sock syndrome with this pair as well. I got the first done, and I don't know, I just can't bring myself to knit the second one, which it's just my regular vanilla sock recipe with a ribbed cuff, stockinette, Fish Lips Kiss Heel, and then more stockinette on the foot. And I'm ready to move on to something like a patterned sock, because truth be told, I've only been knitting since Christmas Eve. And I knit my first pair of socks after I'd only been knitting a couple weeks. So I think I'm ready to move on to something more complicated, but in the same way that I am with books, I hate to abandon something. So part of me feels like I need to finish this before I can move on to the next project. So once my Boxy sweater is done, I think I'll move on to bigger and better socks. So, and how cute is this bag? Look how cute that is. Knit to live, live to knit. And on a side note, I actually am going the end of this month to get a tattoo covered up. And I'm actually getting a knitting tattoo, so I'm very excited about this. And this bag just made me think of that. So that's another thing that is on my needles. Off the needles, I'll just share my 2 most recent finished objects. The most recent finished object I have is actually what I would consider my all-time favorite project, my knitting pride and joy, and that would be my Exploration Station by Stephen West. I had the opportunity in June to attend a top-down shawl course with Stephen West at Do You Knit in Westfield, New Jersey, which if you haven't been there and you are anywhere near it, you must go. It is Hedgehog heaven. I just realized I was showing you all the wrong side. Here we go. There's the right side. So I had the opportunity to meet Stephen West, to speak to Stephen West, and I said, if you were going to knit another Exploration Station tomorrow, what colors would you choose? So he actually handpicked these colors for me. They are all Hedgehog Fibres, skinny singles. This one is Monet. I believe the gray was like a potluck color. The orange is a potluck color. And the yellow is highlighter. So this was my first time using this technique for short rows, and it was my first experience with brioche. I'm sure there are a couple mistakes in there, but I just really like the way the speckled color with the highlighter yellow in the background worked out. I know I have a mistake in my first row of sassy slips. But again, most people wouldn't know that unless I pointed it out. And I know I have a mistake or two down in the chevrons, but the good thing is that this is so interesting that people will look at it as a whole and not necessarily at those smaller sections to notice any of those errors. So this is fun. It's a good way to get a pop of color in my wardrobe at work. It is massive. It can be worn like a triangular scarf in the front because of the size. If I wear it in the traditional way in the back, it's essentially a blanket, but it's fun. It's a good pop of color. Like I said, okay, just had some technical difficulties, did a little swivel, knocked down the camera. So back to the Exploration Station. Favorite finished object. This would be a really good background picture for something. Okay, so that is that. Right before I went to the beach, I finished my Otherside tank, which is a pattern by Melanie Berg. And this was knit up in the Knit Picks Lindy chain, the linen blend yarn, so it would be lightweight for summer. And I really just liked this mustard yellow, you can see it better down here, and the gray combo. It's pretty neutral. I really like the sheen on this linen yarn. When it moves, it has a little bit of a sheen. So this was a super fun pattern. Knit from the bottom up in the front and stockinette. Bind off and cast on more stitches for the neck, and then knit down the back. And I did a little bit of a variation on the pattern rather than at the top including one of these smaller yellow stripes. I went ahead and did the top section just kept it in that golden color the whole way across. So you can see the shoulder, the entire shoulder here is that golden color. So because this is linen, it's nice and cool. I wore it at the beach comfortably, a little bit see-through, so more cami underneath. I'm thinking that this would also be cute in the fall with like a collared white dress shirt underneath. For some reason, I keep picking these patterns that are miles and miles of stockinette. So I am ready for something other than stockinette. So that will probably be what I do next. I have some hand spun that I want to use. It's from Classy Squid Fiber Company, and I spun it as a gradient. So I want to do a shawl, a gradient shawl using that. So that's definitely on my list. In addition to knitting, I do a lot of spinning. I have an Ashford Kiwi 2 spinning wheel. So I probably do more knitting than spinning, but I like to throw it in there every once in a while just for a change. I took a spinning 101 class at Flying Fibres, which is in Landisville, Pennsylvania, and fell in love. Came home with a drop spindle, but I am too impatient and that was not fast enough for me. So the first big profit I made from my yarn dyeing business, I took and bought my Ashford Kiwi 2 spinning wheel. So I am currently, and if you're not familiar with this Etsy shop, Stitches Plus Pearls, go, run there now. Very cool shop. Okay. I would show you what this bag says, but it has some language, maybe not appropriate for all. I am currently spinning a mega art bat from Mork Made Fiber Company, which is in Los Angeles. She has a really awesome Etsy shop, great customer service. So I've done some fiber prep, and I'm actually going to be doing a fractal spin with this fiber. And this is merino, Tussa silk, Firestar. There's some silk noil in there. I can see the sparkle in that piece there. So I'm doing a fractal spin. So my first bobbin will have long color runs of this kind of coral color, and then longer runs of the tan. And then I will ply it with my second bobbin, which I think for that one I want to do every other. So I've already done fiber prep and have these little balls ready to spin. So the second bobbin will be one of these, one of these, one of these, one of these. Whereas my first is, I think, 2 coral, 2 brown. So I think that'll come out really nicely. I'm doing a pretty thin spin. I think I'll end up with some fingering weight yarn. I can't stop looking at the sparkle in this. So pretty. So, and I'll put all of the information for the shops and fiber and yarn mentioned in the show notes. So that's currently on my wheel. Another exciting tidbit, I'm an instructional coach at a high school. The high school I work with has a School of the Arts program, and part of that is fashion design. So the teacher asked me to come down and demonstrate how fabric is even created just from the basics. So I had my best day at work last week. I took my spinning wheel in, went down to the fashion room and demonstrated spinning for the students. And one student in particular took a real interest and wanted to learn how to knit. So when I did the demonstration, I brought some hand spun yarn that I had, and I lost my train of thought. Okay, so brought that and just cast on a small swatch on circular needles just to show them how the yarn would work up into fabric. And he asked to try, and I was like, sure. So I gave it to him. I just a knit stitch. I said, you go through the back, wrap it around, pull it off. And I know when I started learning, I constantly was having to ask my mom, is this right? Is this right? Did I do that right? That doesn't look right. He knit an entire row with no help. So he's a natural. So he is currently learning how to knit. I took in a lot of my extra yarn for him, and he is working on a cowl where the top is almost like a dickie that could be folded over like a turtleneck, and then it's going to come down. We're going to do some increases to have it come down, and we kind of fudged a pattern, but he is making that for the School of the Arts fashion show in January, and I'm actually going to be in the fashion show as well. I mean, I've always wanted to be a model, but no, I wasn't tall enough. But interestingly enough, I'm not going to be walking in the fashion show. I'm actually going to be spinning on stage, and they're going to have a video going in the background, almost explaining like sheep to shawl, or how wool is used to make fabrics, and then how that fabric is then used for garments. So he asked me to wear my hand knits and sit on the stage and spin. So of course I was like, yes. So that'll be really fun. So that's in January. So I'll have to have something really fun on my wheel for that. Okay, so in addition to knitting and spinning, I'm going to be talking about what is from the pots. So some of the new stuff that I've been dyeing, you can see a lot of pre-dyed colorways that I have here. There's not a whole lot left in the shop, but I'm going to be having sort of a large update soon. So here's some of it. I'm going to talk about a few of my favorites. It is officially fall. It is sweater weather. It is time for DK. So I have some good classic DK colors, and my DK base here is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 246 yards, 100 grams. And this is just a good classic tonal gray. See the slight variation there. And this colorway is called Yesterday's News. And there are currently 2 of these in the shop. And this is something I'm probably going to be dyeing more of for the next shop update. So 2 skeins of this make a really awesome shawl, or I have some other colors of DK in the shop as well. Same base. This colorway is one of my favorites. I love chocolate, and I live very close to Hershey, so I consider myself somewhat of a connoisseur. This is called Ganache, and it just looks like a really yummy dark chocolate color. So there are 2 of these in the shop as well. And I just realized that most of my colorways are named after food or drinks. I don't know what that says about me. Here's another one on the same base, and this is Chambourcin. And this is a really yummy tonal deep purple. There are 2 skeins of this left in the shop. And then finally, one of my favorites, Ode to Sriracha. I love spicy food, and I tend to put sriracha on everything but ice cream and cereal. You name it. It's in my scrambled eggs, on my pizza. Okay, so this is Ode to Sriracha, which is a tonal red, and it's not, it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but it's got a little bit of an orange undertone, like an orangey red. So there are 2 skeins of this in the shop as well. And these would actually, I would love this color combo. Could even throw in some purple too, or even a brown, or I think this would make a really pretty shawl. It's so squishy. Or even the gray with the purple striping for a sweater. I may have to dye some for myself. That's really pretty. Okay, so that's some of what is currently there. And for my next shop update, mini skein madness. Unfortunately, because of some large wholesale orders I've had to complete, I missed the autumnal Halloween themed colorway window. So I'm going to be working on some Christmas winter colorway mini skein sets. These are fantastic. These are each, let me double check. Apologize for the crinkling. These are each 93 yards of a 4-ply basic fingering weight yarn. So I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm thinking packs of 5, maybe 6 or 7, so that there's enough if someone wanted to do like a stripy shawl. Pack of 5s would be really fun for stripy socks. So there is going to be a theme for these Christmas mini skeins, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but I'm going to give you some hints. I already have some colors in mind. I think one of them is going to be called Farkas. I think one will be called, can't decide if I want to call it Fragile or Electric Sex. And if you've seen this movie I'm thinking of, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that will be in the next shop update. And I'm thinking that's most likely going to be the end of the month. So we have a lot going on this month. Most importantly, probably the weekend away at Rhinebeck, which I'm so excited about. So thanks for tuning in to my first podcast. Like I said, I'd like to do it bi-weekly. I'll have all the information about all the fiber and products shown down in the show notes. And I guess that's it. Thanks for talking fiber with me, and happy knitting, happy spinning.